right, good evening. We'll get the meeting started. I have some opening remarks. The public meeting is being heard by the City Council Planning Advisory Committee, and public notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The non-elected members of the Planning Advisory Committee are Mr. John Baltutis, Mr. David Joyce, Ms. Catherine Brown, and Mr. Paul Jennings. Citizen appointees may ask questions and participate in the discussion in order to assist in making recommendations to City Council, but may not make motions or vote in connection with the public meeting. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Planning Committee or City Council before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of City Council or the local planning appeal board. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Belleville before the related bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. Comments received at this public meeting, as well as written comments, will be considered by the Engineering and Development Services Department in analysis of the applications that were part of the public meeting tonight. A recommendation report will be brought forward upon receipt of all agency and public comments in the future. Any person wishing to be advised of the Belleville Planning Advisory Committee's recommendations with respect to today's applications are requested to leave their name and address on the appropriate notification sheet, which we won't do, but the public has registered electronically. So for attendance purposes, I see all members of council in attendance. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll go to public meeting. Notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for the proposed official plan amendment and amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 135 Canopton Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings. File number is B-77-1111 and B-50-3-32. Owner is DACA Investment Properties Limited. Applicant is Hillary Murphy, Task Force Engineering Incorporated. Agent is Spencer Hutchison, RFA Planning Consultant. And Manager Augusta McAdams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the application for 135 Canopton Road. So this is a combined official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application. The subject property is located at the northeast corner of Canopton Road and College Street East, and it's approximately 7,151 square meters in size. The north side of the property is currently developed with a commercial plaza, and the southeast portion of the property was added to the property by land merger and was previously 3 residential lots. So due to the land merger, the subject land is presently designated both commercial and residential in the official plan and zoned both general commercial exception 10 and residential second density in the zoning bylaw. This application proposes to rezone the southeast portion of the property from R2, so residential second density, to the general commercial exception 10 zone with special provisions to permit a gasoline bar and convenience store and to redesignate the same portion of the subject land from residential to commercial. The southeast portion of the property would be developed with this new gas bar and convenience store, and the commercial plaza on the north side of the property would remain. There's been a number of supporting documents submitted with the application, which are all listed in the staff report and available online for public review. At this time, no correspondence has been received from the public and no notable comments have been received from internal departments or agencies. I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hutchison is the agent for the applicant, and he's going to make a presentation.
Good evening, folks. Thank you, Chairman Carr, for inviting me to speak. Unfortunately, for some of you, it's been a long day of meetings starting early in the morning. So let's get on with this because it's a record length agenda from what I can see online of 300 plus pages. So hopefully this is a very quick one. I believe this is a housekeeping technical application, and there's 8 slides that I submitted. Hopefully Your colleagues on the IT department can call up the slides. Were the slides submitted and, well, they were submitted.
Yeah, just 1 second, they're looking.
Thank you. Does the committee have the 8 slides in your packages, and it's just the public?
Yes, we have the material.
Okay. I would assume you want me to wait until or proceed.
Just give it 1 second.
Okay, thank you.
We're just having the file forwarded over to IT, and they'll load that momentarily.
Thank you very much. If we could go to the next slide.
Okay, he's looking for slide 2. Okay. Mr. Hutchison, is that the slide you're looking for? That's
No, the next one, please.
Okay, proceed to the next slide.
So, thank you very much. So if we go back 40 years in time, this is what the subject property looked like. As referenced a few minutes ago, up in the northwest corner, an L-shaped existing building and 3 houses along College Street East. If we go to the next slide, please. And this is a blow up that shows the 3 houses and the garage as they existed 40 years ago. Through time, if we go to the next slide, the houses were demolished, the garage was demolished, And the properties, as mentioned earlier, were merged on title. And the other important thing to note is that along the south edge of the properties, the city acquired road widening to help improve the intersection of Canafton Road and College Street East. And this is showing that land addition in 2014. Next slide. And this is a Google Air photo. It shows the area in red that were subject of the applications. And if you notice, you can see the turn lanes and the straight through lanes and the jog and the sidewalk to allow that intersection, which came off the front of the subject properties and rendered these properties, these three properties, no longer residential, and they were merged in with the big property to the north of it. Next one. So as referred earlier, there's the site plan. The yellow in the south is the kiosk. Beside that or to the west are 10 gas pumps with a canopy. And there would be proposed right in, right out only off College Street East and an extension of the existing concrete meridian in the middle to make sure people don't abuse the right in, right out. And if we go to the next slide, that slide in the red area is the lands that we are looking to be rezoned and redesignated. Basically, they're a small little piece of land that was added into the bigger piece, but have existing zoning that's residential, existing official plan designation that's residential, and therefore the request is to merge them so the zoning is the same and the official plan designation is the same. And in doing so, it tidies it up and allows this project to move forward. And the last slide just references the web page where all these documents are posted by city staff. And I'm sorry for the delay, and I'm available to answer any additional questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any questions from committee members to Mr. Hutchison? Councillor Culhane.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Mr. Hutchison, the traffic at that location currently, it's very difficult to exit onto Canafton Road. And so you're saying the traffic could go right only as they exit onto Canafton Road?
No, I'm sorry. If you look at the site plan along the College Street East frontage, so directly across from the Tim Hortons, that would have a right in, right out only, with a barrier to make sure it doesn't happen. But the entranceways along Canafton Road to the northeast corner would largely stay unchanged. A little bit of modification, but not largely changed.
But currently, if you exit from that area and attempt to go left, it's very difficult to get out onto that road and get into the traffic. And I go there because of the restaurant, and other people go there because of the laundromat, I guess, or whatever else small services available. If you add considerable traffic to support 10 pumps and a store, I just don't understand how the traffic is going to be manageable.
Well, I guess, I mean, your one question, leaving the property, there would be turning lanes on the private property, left turn lane, right turn lane. The queue would be on the property, and they wouldn't exit until they had clear sight, either going northbound or southbound. So it's not as if it's creating additional problem on the road allowance, because it will be queued within the property. I guess the other thing to be said is this is probably step one of a multi-phase project, because the folks who own this property own all the land up to the south side of Slapshots and very deep. So the site plan that you see here tonight is only the first parcel of several that they own, and that there will be, quite likely, although I'm not party to it yet, additional site plan. And I would suggest in time that current little plaza will be knocked down and relocated to the north. And through that process, all the entranceways onto Canifton Road will have to be reevaluated. But that is for another day and not at the part of this application. As I said and I showed, basically we're asking for a tidy up of inconsistent OP and zoning that I would suggest, and city staff can disagree, it would have been cleared up as part of the official plan update and a new zoning bylaw to clean up the official plan and the zoning. So that's, I guess, all I can say to that.
Well, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is there any other questions from committee members? No, seeing none. Can I get a motion to refer to the other portion of the meeting? Councillor Kelly, Councillor Sanderson, all in favor? Motion's carried.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Oh,
Ladies.
sorry. I know I failed. Sorry, I got to look at my speakers list. This is back to the electronic world here. So we'll disregard that vote. I have Mahesh Patel in support of the application. Okay, we don't have anybody by that name in the waiting room at the moment. Give it a second here before we proceed. Okay, so because Mahesh Patel is not there, then I'll let that motion carry, and we'll move on to 3.2. So notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, blocks 80 and 81, registered plan 21M-271, and parts 1 through 4 of plan 21R 25429, being part of lot 2, concession 3, formerly Township of Thurlow, City of Belleville, County of Hastings. File number is B-77-1112. Owner is 221-5100 Ontario Incorporated and 238-0416 Ontario Incorporated. Application or applicant is RFA Planning Consultant, and Manager McAdams, if you could present the application, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we could just have the presentation for Settlers Ridge East, please, on the screen. The subject land is located east and north of the existing Settlers Ridge subdivision, which is north of Highway 401 off of Sydney Street North along the city's western boundary. The subject land is approximately 8.7 hectares in size and designated residential in the official plan. The application proposes to amend the zoning bylaw to rezone the subject land from prime agriculture zone and low density residential type 1, exception 17 zone, to low density residential type 1 with special provisions to facilitate the development of 69 single detached dwellings, high density residential zone with special provisions to facilitate the development of 51 townhouse units, and community facility zone with special provisions to permit a stormwater management pond. The application was submitted concurrently with a request for a red line amendment to a draft plan 12T-17001, which is the existing draft plan over the subject plans. The changes to the draft plan reflect the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and they include a reduction of single units and an increase in townhouse units, resulting in 12 additional units, and an increased net density of 20 units per hectare, which is still considered low density with regard to the official plan. A number of supporting documents were submitted with the application and are listed in the staff report. We've received one piece of correspondence from a member of the public regarding this application, which will be addressed and reviewed appropriately and brought forward within the recommendation report when it's prepared to come back to the committee. I will pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And we have Ruth Althouse make a presentation. So, Ms. Ferguson Althouse, you're in the meeting. Your microphone is currently muted. There we go.
Hello,
Hello there.
I have a presentation as well with some slides.
Okay, yeah, and staff are currently working on that. Just give us a couple moments here.
Sure.
So, Ms. Ferguson Althouse, staff are kind of scrambling to find the presentation.
Oh,
Could you
no.
email it perhaps maybe to Mr. Deming? And I know that Mr. Coyle with IT has your email address, so he may also email you and ask for it.
Okay,
Is that possible?
sure. Did you, so I'll just go back into my email here and do that then.
Yeah, if you could, and then that way we'll have it. Ms. Ferguson Holthouse, have you sent that to Mr. Deming?
I have, yes.
I know that committee members have received a copy of it.
Okay.
That is part of it, but because it's a public meeting, I want to make sure that the presentation is broadcasted for the public.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, we've received it now, and we'll pass it through to IT, get it posted. Okay, so your
Okay.
presentation is there. Sorry about the delay.
Yeah, I'm glad that we were able to get it resent. Thank you, Chairman Carr and members of the Planning Advisory Committee. I have a very brief presentation concerning the Settlers Ridge East subdivision that is owned by Van Scrip Holdings and Devanco Homes. They purchased this in 2019. Some of the committee members would recall this subdivision, which was approved in 2018 as the Barkama subdivision. So the purpose of the meeting tonight is to present the proposed zoning for the subdivision. That is a condition of approval for the subdivision. And at the same time, there are some minor red line changes that are proposed, and the zoning will implement those changes as well. So if we could go to the first slide. As Des has already introduced the project and the location of it, it's 8.7 hectares, so just over 20 acres in size. And it's just east of Hampton Ridge Drive and north of an existing stormwater management pond in Settlers Ridge subdivision. It's at the very north limit of the urban settlement boundary for the city of Belleville in this part of Thurlow Ward. And it will be the final subdivision occurring within the Settlers community, Settlers Ridge community, under the current official plan boundary designation. So next slide. This slide shows the draft plan of subdivision red line plan that was submitted with the rezoning application. There are no actual changes to the original subdivision road pattern or the stormwater block that were approved in 2018. There are only some amendments and adjustments with respect to the configuration of the single detached lots and the townhouse blocks. The road pattern itself is interesting. I've spoken with the engineer at Jewel, who was involved with the 2018 draft plan. As a planner, I was not involved in this subdivision originally in 2018. Has since been involved since the new owners purchased the land. But the road pattern itself provides for traffic calming through the subdivision and the community, in that it's a very circuitous type of route as you go from Hampton Ridge Drive and eventually further to the east towards Town Center and Roy Boulevard. So that's one of the observations I made as a planner in seeing the original layout of the draft plan road network, and that has not changed. There are two phases of development that would be proposed with this subdivision, and the servicing would be extended from Hampton Ridge Drive and from Trinity Court and Abbott Street to the south. And eventually there will be a connection to Roy Boulevard that will link the water surface and connect the water surface with the water connection in through Settlers Ridge. Next slide. This is an extract from the planning report that shows the comparison between the original draft approved subdivision plan in 2018 versus the proposed red line. It's a fairly modest change in terms of density, a slight intensification. You can appreciate at the time and when the plan was submitted in 2017, it was not with a builder, it was just with the owner. And now that Devanco Homes owns this and will be building the homes in this subdivision, they see a demand for the bungalow towns and wanted to increase the number of street townhouses for bungalows. And so there has been an increase in that as well. There's been an increase in the 15-meter or 50-foot lots from what was previously planned in the subdivision. So you'll see that there's been an increase of around 13 lots from the original 107 lots to 120. The actual net density is still considered low density overall at 20 units per hectare. Next slide. This slide has a fair bit of information on it, and I think there's more to the slide, but I appreciate maybe it's not all visible on the screen. But it does show the phasing, the first cul-de-sac Street C, and the extension of Abbott Street, Street B would be the first phase. So that would be developed initially by the developer. And the various colors in the plan here that show the low density homes, the single detached lots, the 15 meters, the predominant color you see, the pale yellow. The darker yellow would be the larger lots, the 18-meter frontage. There's just a few 12-meter frontage lots that are in the very pale orange. And then the townhouse blocks, which are predominantly all blocks of 4, are in the orange color on the draft plan. As I mentioned, they're all bungalow towns that are proposed. There's been consideration to the landscape treatment throughout the subdivision, and we've spent some time demarcating how street trees could be implemented along the all of the streets on both sides, with the exception of the entry street, Street A. And we recognize the desire of the city to implement street tree planting along new subdivision roads. And while this has not been able to occur in earlier phases of Settlers Ridge, certainly the intention with Settlers Ridge East is that this would be implemented as part of the detailed design. So we've shown schematically how the street trees could be considered in view of how it will work with the existing or the proposed driveways and the parcel layout. And there is also a request by the city to have a multi-purpose 3-meter wide trail through Settlers Ridge East. So that is in the darker black showing along the road allowance. It doesn't show as well perhaps on this slide, but there will be a multi-purpose trail that will traverse through the entire Street B or Abbott Street. And then on all other streets, there will be sidewalk provided. So there will be good pedestrian movement and connectivity through the subdivision. Within that, we've been able to provide for sufficient boulevard, we believe, for the street trees as well. I think that there are building configurations, and I realize it's a little difficult to see how those typical buildings look, and perhaps from your own presentation, you can see that a little bit more clearly. The reason we do that is to show how the zoning will work that we're proposing to ensure that the building plans that the builder wants to build here will fit within the 2 main zone categories that we're proposing. Finally, there is a dry pond feature for stormwater management that you'll see fairly central, and it's fairly odd configuration. It's not a permanent wet pond, it's a dry pond, so it's essentially a spillover area from the existing wet ponds in the area. We are proposing a naturalized landscape design treatment for this area, and through hedging and various sort of native tree species through the dry pond area, and they're shown schematically on this drawing as well, and labeled as naturalized meadow landscape treatment. Next slide. I've referenced the desire to have the water connection made out to Roy Boulevard, so that'll improve the fighting water flow through the subdivision, and just to provide for good looping of the water. And so that is a proposal. There's been an agreement between the intervening landowner and Van Screp Holdings and Devanco Homes to provide for this water link out to Roy Boulevard, as well as a temporary cul-de-sac. So the city will be conveyed these lands as an easement for both water service and for the municipal turnaround. Next slide. When we consulted with the city about the zoning for Settlers Ridge East, they made it clear that they wanted us to pick existing zones within Settlers Ridge, which we have done. We've selected 2 zones, and that we minimize the number of zones to make it easier to administer the building permit process. So we've selected the 2 zones, the R1-23 zone for all of the single detached units and the R4-2 zone for all the bungalow townhouses. And you'll see as well, there's a small section of land that is left over from earlier phases of Settlers Ridge that will be zoned as well, R1-23. There's 1 or 2 lots at the end of Abbott Street across from Trinity Court that will be included as this subdivision is unrolled out. So that's, and finally the storm pond as well is zoned the CF-9 zone, consistent with the existing storm pond to the south. And next slide. So this is just to illustrate how the R1-23 and the R4-2 zone meets all of how the lots and parcel fabric within the Settlers Ridge East subdivision meet or exceed all of those zone requirements. And there's no special provisions that are required or proposed for this rezoning. Next slide. That concludes the presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, and my apologies again for the delay. Any questions from committee members? I'll get my screen back to I can see. Yes, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Aldhouse. That's a great plan. I really think there's a lot of great mixed middle in there, which is what I think staff are looking for on the affordable side. And I think I see it's a lengthy engineering report on also being able to service that. And I guess the first question would be, would you be able to answer those questions on the serviceability, the having enough of serviced water and sewer? I know we've talked about the pond, and that seems like that's going to be good. Does everything seem to be okay? I saw
Sure, there's no issue with respect to servicing at all. I think the city's main desire was to have the looping out to Roy, which we're going to provide for the water service. And that's just to improve the water pressure and service delivery of water through the entire north part of the city. But all of Settlers Ridge was designed, the trunk sewer through there for the subdivision, and so there are no concerns with respect to sewer capacity. I can't answer anything very specific, but I just know that to be what the engineers advised.
Okay, thank you. Second question is on aesthetics. I of course have a young family, so children 7, 5, and 2. Have there been talks at all, and maybe this is just to yourself and staff, about a playground, or is there one that's nearby to that whole development? It seems like there's some great parkland, but I would look for, if any children under 12 or under 15, any kind of playground at all. Has that been discussed at all any time of planning?
The park that exists for Settlers Ridge, I believe it's called Bird Park. Which is a very large block of land, and then it butts existing city parkland. Unfortunately, I don't have the overall Settlers Ridge subdivision community plan, but it is this subdivision with the multipurpose trail will connect directly. It's very close proximity to that park block. And so when Settlers Ridge was designed, and I was involved in it from the very beginning of Settlers Ridge right to the final phases, the intention always was to have a very large central park block, and the city of Belleville already had some land there designated for park. And so I understand it'll take probably some years to see its full development, but there is an existing playground there that the Settlers Ridge developers did participate in providing. And then there's additional land there that's intended to be developed for, I believe, play fields like soccer.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the Bird Park actually extends right out to Sydney Street with city-owned land, so it's a large piece of playground area. Mr. Beltutis, I saw your hand.
Ruth, this looks like a great development, but you made a comment that it may take some time to develop this parkland. What do you mean by some time? Is that like a year from now, or is it like 5 years from now? And I understand it's city-owned, so is it the city that's developing it, or is it the developer? And why is it going to take some time? Why can't it happen while this whole development is going on?
I'm really not, perhaps that's a better question for staff. It would be the city. The developer of Settlers Ridge did provide the playground equipment for the bird park, and all the land that's being added to the city parkland that extends all the way to Sydney Street. So in terms of and general grading and seeding and that sort of thing, but I would expect that further development of the entire bird park area would be as part of the city's long range parks planning.
So we've got to push the city to get this moving, get this park finished quicker than okay, thank you. I know
I
what
was
I
just
got.
going to add that there would be cash in lieu of parkland provided through the subdivision agreement from this subdivision, and that money is earmarked for city parks and presumably would be go towards assisting further development of Bird Park.
Great, thank you. We'll push the city for the development quicker. Thank you.
Mr. Beltunis, just on that thought, the city actually this year just funded some money for the purpose of a parks master plan. And so all our parks are currently under review, and right now there's actually, or has been, some gas line work being completed through that open space area. And I don't know if you've been up there, but there is a very large playground equipment in place for multi-ages that was a city funded and developer funded initiative. And that park will continue to be developed along with all our other parks as part of the master plan. So we're moving forward in that regard for sure. Sorry.
I was just going to say, great, thank you. That answers a lot, so I don't have to harass.
No, we're pushing with you. Councillor Sanderson.
Where'd everybody go? Thank you, Chair. Couple of questions for you, Ruth. In terms of the construction, is there going to be access to that development, which I think you said was the final development for Settlers Ridge, from the east? So from Roy Boulevard or Town Center? And the reason I ask is that I mean the development is great, but the amount of construction trucks on a daily basis that wheel in there today along Kempton and up Hamptons Boulevard, it creates a lot of dust issues, noise issues, safety issues. So I just wondered if in this development we were looking at perhaps routing from the other side.
Yes, I apologize for failing to mention on the second last slide that I had shown the water connection and it focused on that. It also is a construction road access. So that it's a very good point. The builder does not want to be further disrupting the existing homes and homeowners in Settlers Ridge. And there's been an arrangement to allow for that construction traffic to come from the east.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And the second was just more a comment. So on Bird Park, it's about a 7-acre parcel of land. And as others have mentioned, and this is for John, I guess. So there was a development, I think it was RFA that put together the plan proposal for the park that did include soccer fields. And I was pushing for it, harassing the city before I got elected. And following that, it sort of got rolled in to, as Councillor Carr said, the parks master plan. So I'm looking forward to that coming forward, and I'm also looking forward to Bird Park being near the top of the list for development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from committee members? Mr. Jennings.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question about the multi-purpose trail. That's again same area we've been talking about, the temporary construction road. Is there any possibility of that easement being allowed to connect the trail? I guess before development is done in that commercial area, so to attach the trail to the existing commercial as part of the subdivision, or will the construction road access be shut off as soon as it's completed? I'm just assuming people are going to travel that way through the field. I was wondering if maybe it could be formalized as part of the easement.
Well, I think that would be a decision or direction from staff. The easement will be in favor of the city. And so that easement will be registered for the city for their use for construction, as I mentioned, construction access, as well as the water service. So that water service will be in the ground, and it's 10 meters wide. So there's the potential there for some sort of other connection for the purposes of pedestrian trail, but it would be something that the city staff would want to see move forward, I think, in terms of how it would fit within their overall active transportation plan.
Okay, I'll leave it to them. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Ms. Ferguson Althouse, for your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Now I'm going to Mr. Paul Reeser is registered to speak against the application. I'll get him to join the meeting. Mr. Reeser.
Yeah, Councillor Carr, Chairman Carr, thanks very much for having me on, and to all the members of the Planning Advisory Committee. And thank you very much, Ms. Althouse, for the presentation. I represent the voice of many people in Settlers Ridge. We do live on Kempton Avenue. Some people call me the little mayor, but we do have several issues. I'm actually quite pleased that some of the ones you've mentioned in your presentation you'll hear and you've answered, but I just have 4. They actually address environment, health, and safety. So I'll start now. I'm just going to read them off my phone. And some of the other councils, you probably heard me beat my environmental drum on trees, but during the elections and after the elections, but we're trying to lobby for trees and Settlers Ridge. It's just a wasteland, especially in this heat. There's no trees. So I ask, how will you expedite the city's tree planting policy in new subdivisions like this phase in Settlers Ridge to maintain and protect our tree canopy from all that threatens it? Examples are wind, ice storms, insects, urban growth, etc. Our rationale: the urban plan in Settlers Ridge subdivision currently does not include room for municipal trees on the city road allowance. I can speak to that personally, along with many neighbors. We even went to the extent of getting locates from the city. They have a great program. I only had one neighbor in Kempton and Farmington that was able to get 2 municipal trees. They're doing really great, especially on these hot days, but there's absolutely no room, unfortunately. One, because of the sidewalk and the underground infrastructure, then the bike path that they put in. So it's quite barren up here and the amount of heat. And as I said, I think we have to do our thing as our planet warms, and we're expecting warmer summers. I think everyone understands the benefit of trees. And just as a note, the Norbell Creek that runs along Sydney, and it does a couple of dog legs. Unfortunately, I'm just noticing that I think the emerald ash borer is finally getting those ash trees. So what I'd also like to ask, if we can get any sort of tree foliage. I know Councillor Sanderson, you had a tree planting on the park across the street last year. Even to run trees along the Norbell Creek that runs from Hampton Ridge over to Sydney, It's quite wet there at times, and I think that'd be really nice, and that would also add to the park, but just as some sort of compensation, not just for the homeowners, but nature itself. We have a blue heron that flies out of that wetland there. There's quite a bit of wildlife. So I think we owe it to the environment to even see if we can get some sort of buy-in from the developer and the builders that are in there, even the current builders that are building on some of the crescents. My question number 2, you did address this, but I'll read it. Here's what we have. How will you expedite the city's traffic calming policy in new subdivisions like Settlers Ridge to keep the streets safe for motorists, cyclists, pedestrians, and especially our children? The rationale: with the lack of proper speed limit, speed limit signage and controls, some drivers continue to use excessive speed to reach their destination, putting all in harm's way. Kempton Avenue, we call our quarter-mile stretch. It's the speed that some of these drivers do. I know a Councillor Carr mentioned phone the police, but I think, and I thought about it today, I think some of the people just don't realize the speed they're doing. They might even have kids in their car. They're just trying to get from A to B. But even if I know if it's not posted, it's 50K. The subdivision just below us in the built up area, I've driven it. They have a lot of signage up there, even at 40K, and it's very well protected that way. I think people just need that reminder. I worked with Councillor Carr a couple of years ago on Sydney Street, and we had to work with Quinte West, but we were able to get the speed down from 80 to 60, and it made a big difference. There's a lot of school buses that come through there. So I just think even as a start, a reminder, and I also noticed down Hampton Ridge towards Maitland in the earlier stages, they just put up a full traffic control signal because the crosswalk wasn't cutting it. And I also noted Cavendish, just to block up, a new stop sign went in. So I know we're still in the planning stages, and at your town hall, Councillor Carr, you mentioned the city wants to expedite this, not just in our area, but everywhere. It's getting pretty crazy out there with the number of people. Just to get some signage, some reminders to the drivers to slow down. I have seen incidents, our neighbors, where I sit right here, we're just at the end of the crescent that goes into Farmington. That crescent was built quite a bit higher. There's a nice 30-degree slope for the kids to come down on their bicycles or their skateboards. They come right out to Kempton Ridge, they give a quick look. But as I say, if that time's there when that car is going too fast, it's just something, I hate to say, something's going to happen unless we get that speed to slow down. And with this subdivision, unfortunately, there's only 2 ways in. I know we have over on Scenic, I could call that a partial entrance, but basically it's Hampton Ridge off Maitland and Kempton off Sydney. We are collecting all this volume of traffic. Covington Crescent, which was supposed to be a low density, was voted in as a high density. Again, it just compounds the problem. So we've got 2 funnels into the subdivision, either in or out, and it's horrendous amount of traffic. I was glad to hear, because we've lobbied for something at Roy Boulevard to get some of the traffic out of our way. I've been here just actually 3 years. I enjoy my time in Belleville. I volunteer a lot, and I want to do my part, but we've had 3 years, and some people have been here 4 years, of construction traffic. Last week, we started with a convoy of dump trucks bringing fill into the new phase, one after the other, dumping mud, dirt. I continually sweep the road in front of my house because I'm proud of keeping it looking well. But if you drive down, I think the council said they're down there today, if you see the stones, and if you go over towards Hampton Ridge, because that's where most of the mud falls off. I know people down there at the east end of the Kempton, they're also quite upset about it. It's been just an utter mess for years. I know they try to clean it, but sometimes they don't use water. It's just a dust cloud. And so I'm sure everyone understands construction, but we're in our 3rd year, going into our 4th year now. And my next question, number 3, what is being done to control speculators who are buying up homes for profit and asking for a high rent return during the city's low vacancy crisis? Our rationale: this action only drives up house prices for the local population looking for perhaps their first home investment. Now, when we first bought 3 years ago, the salesperson said you're supposed to stay in your house for a year, which we had full intent. He says it's not really policed, whatever that was supposed to mean. I don't know who even polices it, if it's a bylaw in the city. We have witnessed, and you can even see if you drive through the community, I'm sure this is the same in other new communities, you know, you see the people that can't afford it, and they just actually have to have multiple families moving in just to afford this an insane rent. And I think we all have to have some sort of corporate responsibility from the developers, the builders, the city, to let our own residents have a chance at these homes. There was some crazy rumor out there when we moved in. They actually had a busload of people from Toronto going down buying homes up in this subdivision. I somehow believe it. It just, you can tell the ones that have to rent. And I don't think that does well for our locals. I am retired, but I did pick myself up a job at a home improvement center. I work in the paint department, and I speak to a lot of people. And it really bothers me when young people, I have a chat while I mix in their paint, and they just bought their first home. But you know what, the young people who were born and raised here, we can't afford Belleville. We can't afford the county. We have to move out. And I think that's a problem. And that's, I think there is speculation happening. I think we have to do a better job to control it. I know it's hard to do, but it just bothers me. We're going to turn into Toronto. I mean, it's just, people just can't afford it. And I know there's a lot of Toronto money out here, and they're buying, and I'll admit, we come from Durham, but we had full intent to retire out here and contribute back to the community. But there is Toronto money, Durham money, people buying here and renting because they know there's a need. And to be quite honest, the house value is still very affordable. So I think that really has to be addressed. So that would be the same questions for this new phase. Let's have the local homeowners that work hard and keep the young families in here, and the seniors, of course. And my final question, how will you leverage funds to support our medical system to reflect this increase in population, as many residents are new in the area or in search of a family doctor, which are in much demand? Rationale, Belleville's municipal hydro company pays dividends to help recruit doctors, but this subdivision is serviced by Hydro One, so there's no direct financial benefit to help the hospital. Again, I mentioned I volunteer. I'm a frontline volunteer at BGH. I see it firsthand, people coming in to the emergency department at Belleville General Hospital to find help. All we have to fall back on, if you don't have a doctor, are these telemeds. I think there's about 7, because I've been helping them work on their website. And just to bring homes in, and they have to help. The hospital, I don't think any gets, I know we get the dividend from Viridian, or now it's a Lexicon. But I think even if we were to charge a levy on the homes, as we could with trees, something has to be done. We just can't have this influx of people, because I see it for myself. So that's why I feel I can speak strongly and with conviction that something has to be done. One day in the emergency department, a doctor had to come out. The waiting list was, the time for the wait was 10 hours. 10 hours in an emergency department. Now, of course, they prioritize if there's strokes. People were coming up to me as a frontline volunteer saying, this is ridiculous. And I said, well, it's just the way. I said, there's an aging population. There's the number of people moving here. And just by putting these subdivisions, I hope again, is there's some corporate responsibility, again, from developer, builders, city, all of us, to help with this situation, because they're, as you know, with the hospitals and schools, there's under tight budget. And I don't know if there's any sort of controls. I know the city gets tax revenues, but just to put this onto the hospital, for instance, not to mention schools and other services, it has to have some sort of benefit from it to help the hospitals. All sorts of projects they're trying to do, but I just ask everyone here on this panel that can you please keep that in mind, not to stop a subdivision or growth. It's important for the city, but to remember, someone mentioned about the utilities. Is there enough infrastructure? And I'm a utility guy myself, you know, power, water, and there's been water pressure issues. They did correct that because they ran water up Sydney, but we have to look at this. The biggest issue now is traffic. There's a heck of a lot of homes going in there for 2 streets that have to service this subdivision. So that is my report. We love our home. We love our community. We want to continue volunteering and helping. So that's, I just wanted to share that out there. Those are our thoughts. And again, that's from the residents, and some of the the patients and some of my customers where I work. So I've got a pretty good sampling across the area, and that's how I see it, and that's how people are reporting it to myself. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions from committee members? No, not seeing any. Thank you again for your presentation.
My pleasure.
So with that, I need a motion to refer to the Planning Advisory Committee. Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Kelly, all in favor? That motion carries. So 3.3, notice of complete application, an introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 20 Blessington Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number B-77-1113. Owner is Shadi Ureni, 270-6684 Ontario Incorporated. Applicant is Spencer Hutchison of RFA Planning Consultant. And I'll turn it over to Manager McAdam to make the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. So for this application, the subject land is located at the southeast corner of Blessington Road and Highway 37. It's approximately 10 hectares in size and designated industrial and environmental protection in the official plan. The applicant's requesting to rezone the property from prime agriculture zone to a general industrial zone with special provisions for relief on the required number of parking spaces, specifically to reduce the required number of parking spaces from 352 spaces to 112 spaces. This would facilitate the development consisting of a truck terminal with associated warehousing, and in a later phase of development, and eight self-storage unit buildings. The hazard zone existing on this subject property, which you can see in the presentation slide, on the south end of the property, central to the property's boundary, would remain and would be retained on the subject lands. There was a number of supporting documents submitted with the application, and they are all listed in the staff report and available online for public review. The application has been circulated to a number of internal departments and external agencies for review. The circulation did include TransCanada, TransNorthern, and Enbridge Pipelines, the MTO, and Quinte Conservation Authority, among others. The MTO have provided comments with respect to the initial stages of the application, that a traffic impact study would be required to determine if any impacts or issues to Highway 37 intersection, and to provide mitigation measures to address concerns. A stormwater management report and plan were also requested. And the MTO comments confirmed that the proposal will require an MTO building and land use permit, since the subject land does fall within the permit control area. At this time, a significant amount of public correspondence has been received by staff in opposition to the proposal. All correspondence received by noon on June 25th, I believe, was included in the initial report. All further correspondence received will be included in the recommendation report, and all correspondence received will be reviewed and addressed in the recommendation report when it is prepared to come forward back to the committee. I will pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the presentation. And we have Mr. Hutchison in queue to make a presentation on this application.
Good evening once again. If staff could bring up the presentation. I did email it about 10 minutes ago just to be on the safe side.
Thank you for that.
So that's the covering page. So if we can go to the second slide. Thank you very much. I just want to set the scene and the bedrock of information on this project, and just let's get the facts on the table. So this is the cover page of the current City of Belleville official plan, and I've highlighted in the red box that it was approved and in place in 2002. But if you read the first paragraph below it, it says it was adopted by City Council on June 18th, 2001. So roughly 19 years ago, the previous council approved the official plan. And as will happen with the current update, there was full and extensive public consultation as to the plan and the diagrams and schedules that attach to the plan. The property that we're about to talk about has been designated as it is today since 2002, and the plan has not changed as it pertains to this property. Next slide. So in the official plan, there are three schedules, three maps. Schedule B is referred to as the urban serviced area. And this is the schedule. And if you look, there's an arrow on the left that points to the legend, and it indicates that the purple area on the map is designated industrial. The other point to make is all the color in the map here represents the urban serviced area of Belleville. So if we go to the next slide, this is a blow up of the corner of the plan at the corner of Blessington and 37. And back in 2001, 2002, the whole northeast corner of the city was designated purple industrial and labeled as the Canafton planning area. So again, within the urban area, it is not in the city's designated rural area, and it's designated industrial. Next slide. Now this is the complementary rural area plan, or Schedule A. And even at this scale, you can see a lot of chocolate brown, and chocolate brown is designated agricultural land use. And the creamy colored is rural. And again, the subject property is not shown as being in the rural area, it is in the urban area. It is not designated agricultural use. And as such, when you get to the provincial policy statement, this is not prime agricultural land. The prime agricultural land is the chocolate brown land. And, you know, there are comments about protecting prime agricultural land. Well, just to put everything in context, the city is in the process through their new official plan of taking prime industrial land and making it urban, to take it out of farmland. And that is the chocolate brown area immediately east of the city, east of College Street, south of 401. So just to keep everything in context, that is agricultural land that is being taken out or being requested. This application does not. Next page. And this is the third and final schedule of the current official plan, and it's the transportation schedule. And there's a legend that shows the hierarchy of streets and roads throughout the municipality. The high level are the highways, then you have collector roads, arterial roads, and then local roads. Although this is a bit blurry, what this diagram shows is that the subject property is located at the signalized intersection of a highway, which is under provincial jurisdiction, and a collector road. Not a local road, not a small rural road in the sense of the city's transportation hierarchy, but a collector road destined for traffic. The policies I haven't quoted here, they are in the official plan. They explain what a collector road is. So for a land use planner, this is an ideal location for a depot that has vans coming and going, signalized intersection at the corner of a collector and a highway. Next slide. A couple of minutes ago, I referred to policies, or I referred to the Canafton planning area. And when we go to the section 4.5.3 of the plan, Under commercial and industrial land uses, we focus on C, uses permitted, and it talks about the Maitland Park Drive area. Well, we're not in that area. So we go down to the last sentence in red. In all other areas designated industrial, development should be established pursuant to the policy set out in section 3.12 of this plan. Next page, please. And so here is section 3.12. And we go to the second part of the section, permitted uses. And there's a range of permitted uses included, underlined, including transportation, truck terminals, warehouses. This is the city's official plan. This is what the city's plan calls for this property. And what are we asking to have approved? A transportation, truck terminal, and a warehouse. This application implements the city's plan. Next page, please. So let's jump up a level of document to the provincial policy statement, the umbrella planning document that all applications have to refer to. And this policy statement is only a couple of months old from May and highlighted as a policy to do with settlement areas. The province wants to stop sprawl and focus growth in established settlement areas. So, and the policy that's highlighted, which is 1131, settlement areas shall be the focus of growth and development. Next page, please. And the provincial policy statement at the back has definitions. And there's the definition of a settlement area. A and B. And B, which is underlined, lands which have been designated in official plan for development. As shown earlier, this property is in the urban area on lands designated for industrial development. Therefore, I would suggest, as far as the province is concerned, this development is within the settlement area of Belleville where development is supposed to occur. Next slide, please. So just to touch briefly on the zoning, the current zoning, this is a section of map A4, and in the red is approximate boundaries of the subject land north of the creek. I just want to point out that across the road, adjacent to this property, is a property already zoned industrial and with industrial use on it. The other thing to note is that this property, as I said a few minutes ago, pursuant to the provincial policy statement, is not prime agriculture. But this is confusing because the old Thurlow bylaw had categories of zones, and you can see them on the map. There's RU, there's PA, there's RR, there's H. So the bylaw for Thurlow has a PA zone, which is prime agriculture, but it is not the prime agriculture of the province. It's a label. And I would suggest that in the new zoning bylaw, and staff can weigh in, PA will not be a land use category name because of this confusion. And in my 12 years working in the city, the number of times people would confuse prime agriculture in the zoning bylaw with prime agriculture in the official plan was quite high. And it's the PA, prime agriculture, in the official plan that is the key document, the key wording. Next slide, please. So this is the special M132 zone across the road, across Blessington Road. And if you notice, it's a 2016 bylaw. So this was a rezoning 4 years ago. And what does the city currently provide and allow? A heating and plumbing shop with the associated parking of trucks. There's no cap on the number of trucks. There's no cap on the size of the heating and plumbing shop, except what the normal M1 zone would allow in terms of lot coverage and setbacks. So just to put in context, there is already industrial use or a industrial zone property adjacent across the road from the property. Next slide. So this is the concept plan, and I stress it's a concept plan, the first version thereof. It shows 3 buildings starting in the northwest corner and 8 mini lock storage buildings in the southeast corner. If we go to the next slide, to help orientate the site plan against the real world, my colleagues at Ainley overlaid the buildings against the field. And if you look closely, apart from a little bit in the south or the south central, all of the buildings are located, and the parking and paved areas or hard surface areas are all within the current field. Through ongoing discussions after this meeting, quite clearly the site plan has plenty of room to rotate and move those mini lock storage units to completely be in the field. But it'd be a bit of an environmental question as to the nature of the trees in that bump out and whether they have to be maintained or not. That will be left to the professionals in the environmental area. What this air photo also shows is I've highlighted 2 green areas. There's a green line up the east boundary and then curves northwest along the property line. That is a heavily vegetated, mature tree line, vegetation. You cannot see through it. It is a sound and visual barrier to a certain extent, and there is no requirement, no need for that to be attached. All the development will be in the field and in a sort of green or lighter green polygon. It's just a concept, but there's the opportunity to berm the land, put vegetation on top of it so that the lands to the northeast of the subject lands would not be able to see the ground clutter, as I would say, the buildings, or only the top of the buildings, because along that side of the property and wrapping around to Blessington Road, we could grade the property with a berm that you find along railway tracks or highways. I don't want to, no, we'll just hold on. I don't want to steal thunder, but I believe you will see a video, a drone fly over the property, which is quite impressive. If you look at the 1 minute mark of the video, you can look at the green boundary along the east side and the north side, and it really gives you a strong impression of the vegetation along those boundaries and how thick and mature and overgrown it is. And the other thing, I'll leave the other comment to the next slides, please. So I canvassed the owner of the property, and he will speak in a few minutes as to how does his operation work at this hour, to put it into context. So he has 2 divisions, County Courier and County Transport. County Courier is 5 vans, and they are the small vans that you see delivering Amazon and other products to your house. They do mail runs. He provides what I would call office overload to people like Purolator who need extra hands on deck. And they do a lot of medical rush orders, transporting human organs, medical supplies, and whatnot to and from hospitals. On the other side of the business, County Transport has 3 straight trucks, which I take to be 5-ton trucks, and 2 tractors and 3 trailers. So the tractors are the front end that pull the trailers, and then 3 trailers. And this part of the operation works with freight companies. And the 2 tractors leave Belleville at the night, go to Toronto, pick up the trailers, and bring them back to what in the business is called final mile delivery. So the trucks come in from the 401 up Highway 37, coming from Montreal and Toronto, late at night, early in the morning. The packages, the parcels, everything in the trucks are sorted and then reloaded onto 3 of the trucks that I just mentioned and shipped out to Belleville in the county, Trenton and Peterborough, and Kingston. 2 of the trailers are kept and operated out of Toronto. 1 trailer is kept in Belleville. Next slide. So currently, the owner utilizes a total of 10 trucks, excluding the trailers. Now, that seems to be a small number given the size of buildings that were referenced earlier, but that's because of the warehousing and storage attributes. Many businesses and industries in Belleville and area do not have enough on-site storage to hold their products and so need off-site storage. And one good example that was relayed to me is the vineyards in Prince Edward County. They produce all this wine and they box it, but they don't have enough space to store it all on site. So the county transport picks the extra wine up, takes it into Belleville to other warehouses at the present time and stores it. And then a call will come in and say, we need 5 cases of red, 3 cases of white, 2 of sparkling. It's a long weekend. Can you please deliver it back down to our vineyard? So that is part of the function. There are other industries in Belleville where the same service of storage of materials or equipment that the industry or the business does not have the room to store on site. So this operation supports industrial activity in Belleville and surrounding areas. And it's all done with the existing fleet of trucks coming and going. And some of them, like the vineyard in the current situation, don't even come to the site. They go down to the county to pick the wine up and they take it to whatever warehouse it is and then reverse themselves and take it to the warehouse and back to the county. In the future, yes, that would happen at this property, but right now the warehouse is not on this property. Next slide. So I just want to talk about courier, warehousing, truck depots in Belleville, and let's take the 4 big players. So FedEx, a new building along College Street East. It's on land, designated industrial in the official plan, and on a major road. Next slide, please. So going sort of geographically, we have the UPS depot, and that's the smaller little building just off center to the left. And if you look at that, there are rows of houses along Stanley Street all the way up to Station Street. And those are local roads. So for all the comings and goings for UPS vans and trucks, it's past the residential area and on local streets. I'll say another statement in a minute. Okay, carry on. Next, please. let's deal with Campar off Bell Boulevard. It's the small little building to the center, just north of the townhouses on Tracy Park. So there's Campar, and they head out from there to deliver around, and bigger trucks and other trucks bring material in, shuffle it around in that small building and take it out. Campar and UPS, which we just saw, are both situated on land designated industrial. And if you look at the air photo, there's townhouses, there's single family dwellings, and there's a swimming pool. And if you go to Google Earth and do a radius from the loading dock of the Campar building and the previous UPS building, those residential units and dwellings are much closer than any existing dwelling on Blessington Road is from the subject lands. Next slide. And last but not least, we have the Purolator Depot, which is in relatively close proximity of the subject land at the next side road to the south, if I could say. And it's on Casey Road at the intersection of 37, just west of the intersection. And up at the top corner in the yellow is our subject property. Now, it's interesting to note that the distance from the center of the intersection of Highway 37 and Blessington Road to the driveway of the proposed site plan is 165 meters. The distance from the driveway into the Purolator property from the center line of 37 and Casey Road is 224 meters. So our proposed driveway is much closer to Highway 37. The other thing is the focus and the goal of this project is to make use of Highway 37. Trucks want to go down into the city, down to the 401, down to the county. There is no need, no desire, no requirement for any truck to proceed past 165 meters of Blessington Road to go to the next, to go to the next house or the first house. The other thing is, as alluded to, Highway 37, and I would say the first 80 meters of Blessington Road are under the jurisdiction of the MTO. It is in their system, Highway 37, 62, and 401 in Belleville are all under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Transport. And because of their interest, they control any development adjacent to their right of way. And discussions have been held. Information and documentation has been submitted to the ministry in Kingston, to the corridor management planner, outlining the project and confirming the criteria that the ministry, the province wishes for a complete and thorough study of traffic at this intersection in their area of jurisdiction. Anybody who has dealt with MTO in the planning world will know there is not a harder group to get concurrence on access to their roads. So if anybody's going to be hard-nosed about traffic and have a stop to this project, it will be MTO. And the study is underway by an approved consultant, approved by the ministry, and it is doing a study to their technical requirements. And last but not least, one more picture. This is County Transport current location. They utilize part of the old Nortel building. outlined in red. And if you look at that property, right across the street is a extensive residential area. To the west, a little further, is Boyce Court and that subdivision. Clearly, it's a built-up area with substantial density. It's on a very busy street, Sydney Street, with trucks turning in and out from Sydney Street into this property and out. Not that this is a change before when it was Nortel. And the other important thing, and you clearly can see it, is the racetrack. This is an area that the city is working diligently to redevelop. You know, they've put forward the idea that the YMCA would be on this property. There's active processing of commercial activity, supermarket, and medium and high density within the former racetrack lands. So that is where County Transport operates from now, totally legally, totally a neighbor, and I can stand corrected, but I don't believe that the city has had any property standards or other complaints about their current operation. The last slide. This is to questions, and all the documents that have been presented and prepared by the consultant team are located there on the web page. I just want to make a few final comments. The owner had approached the city, asked for help in finding land. Staff worked with him. Unfortunately, we're unable to identify city-owned land that was available. The owner also approached development staff early in the year and had a pre-consultation meeting and was provided with a pre-consultation checklist of material that staff wished to be pursued, and it is being pursued. So I would suggest the owner has done his due diligence, has reached out to the city, has had favorable responses from all staff trying to assist him, but ended up buying private land because the city lands were not suitable. I also would like to note that there are, as referenced earlier, a sizable package of material in objection. I have reached out and had email discussions with one of those individuals. The owner is aware of the concerns, is fully willing and wanting to meet with all concerned to talk about this project, to try and solve differences of opinion, and to come to some consensus. It may not be possible. The views may be too divergent, but we have and we are willing to meet staff and anyone and discuss it. But as I say, I think the bedrock planning documents show this land is industrial and designated for this use. The zoning puts into place the technical issues of lot coverage, setbacks, parking, all those details. And those are more technical. An environmental study has been submitted. It will have to be peer reviewed. Transportation study is in the works. I think all the major concerns will be addressed between now and the time this comes back to the committee. Thank you for bearing with me, and I'm here to answer any questions. And I believe the owner is up to speak when the microphone gets opened up.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Is there any questions from committee members? No, I'm not seeing any. Thank you again, Mr. Hutchison. Next, we have Shadi Rennie, the owner.
Yes, hi. Hello.
Yep, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Spencer, for the introduction. I just want to talk a little bit about County Transport or County Courier. The company was established in 1982 as a local transport company. We currently have 15 employees. Our business model, as Spencer said, we do the overflow of large carriers and large courier companies. We also do transportation of essential products in the healthcare industry. Also, as Spencer mentioned, we do provide logistic services to local businesses, breweries, and wineries. Transportation from warehouses to the wineries or breweries. Also, we are, as Spencer mentioned, we are willing to meet with all the neighbors to address all their concerns. With the new project, we anticipate to hire additional people or staff. We try to create 6 new jobs. We also anticipate to use local businesses to help with the completion of the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any questions from community members? No, I'm not seeing any. Thank you again. Next on the list is Francois, and I apologize, Hoshime, who's the project manager. Good evening, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for receiving us such a late hours and long day for every one of you. We thank you for your time. I was asked if I need to present any or address any issues about this project, but I guess no, I don't have to add anything. I think Spencer covered everything that needs to be said and well said. And we just thank you for taking the time and listening to us and taking this project, under a great consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from community members? No, I don't see any. Thank you very much. So now we'll move on to individuals that are opposing the application, and the first one is Bruce Mack. Good evening, Mr. Mackey. You have the floor.
Good evening, Councillor Carr. Good evening, members. Thank you for having the opportunity to hear my requests. I do have a slideshow as well as a video. We'll get that ready. I don't get mad very often, but I'm mad tonight, and I'm very upset after hearing some of the comments I just heard. Very upset. I'm stating my opposition. I'm here today representing many neighbors for the development of 20 Blessington Road. Go to the next slide. And then we'll actually go to the video. I'm as you've already been introduced to my video by the other correspondent, I will show the video now showing Blessington Road. Down on the next slide.
Yeah, you're from the next slide. Clicker.
Now, I think you're just on a PDF. And Mark, we had talked about, it's a YouTube video. On the PowerPoint presentation, it's you can actually click it, but if you're just going off the PDF, you can't click on it. That's the one up right there. Yep.
It's getting like a black screen when you're watching the video. They asked Bruce to send it direct email. Yep.
Hey, Bruce, do you want to send the video directly to Mark?
You just want the YouTube link?
Yep, that'll work.
I apologize, I had done this ahead of time. And I will get to it here. If you could go back to my slideshow after that, that would be good. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm being told that it's downloading, but it won't launch.
Okay, well, I will send you the YouTube. There, Mark, it's on its way. I apologize for that. Well, that's coming up. It'll be ready for you in just a second. I have a letter prepared by my, which I will be reading from my lawyer. I don't know if you have a copy of that, but I will be reading that as well. I've got some other notes. I have been in contact with the, not the building owner, but the gentleman who just gave his documents. There is some different documents that were given to me. So some of this is new and I'm just learning this now. So. There you go. You might have to put the volume up on that. You've got your volume off on the YouTube. Right there, Mark. Yeah, go down through, across. You've got it muted. The bottom of the screen, you've got the mute right there. Here you go. for that. Can we go to the, we can go back to the PDF to the presentation? Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Just go down to number 5. We can just pass that by. No, we like the music, but we don't need that. I know you guys had a long day, so I appreciate your patience.
Okay, we have a theme of technical issues tonight, so
Yeah, I understand.
the first one went smoothly, but this one's rougher water.
Yeah, we can go to the next one. That's a picture of the road. I just want to let you know where I'm coming from. In 1977, my family moved from Quebec to the 4th concession on County Road 6, which is now known as Blessington Road. We'll go to the next slide. We started our office in that building in the basement, and we converted the garage into an office, and Mackey Insurance started right on Blessington Road. We outgrew Blessington Road. The business got too big. There was 4 of us. 5 of us moved into town. I started in the business in 1989, and we moved into 600 Dundas. And in 2009, I bought the property and built on our current location. Go to the next slide. In 1997, I moved back here, bought my first home when I was single. Go to the next slide. And then I moved, got married, moved next door. I'm raising my family right across the road from the sound barrier trees. So we'll show that in a second. So next slide. Been a lifelong resident. This is me. My parents planted a tree back in on our original house. That was me in 1980. And then last week on Thursday, if you go to the next slide, that's me in front of the same tree. Both grown a little bit. I'm a little heavier than I was back then. Next slide, please. I'm going to read my letter, and then I'll just go over it with you. I got 4 main issues with this project, and I went to my lawyer with about 13, and he condensed it down to 4 with me. I'm making reference to this document here. This is a D6 compatibility. So let me just read the letter. Upon review and foregoing the reports and memos, we have the following concerns with the application as filed. Issue number 1, compatibility with industrial facilities. While the application highlights the city's official plan adopted in 2002, designates the property as industrial land use, when reviewed as a whole, the application fails to establish land use compatibility with neighboring lands as set forth in the MOE CP's guideline D1 and D6. Guideline D1 encourages municipalities to consider the guideline for site-specific development applications, including zoning bylaws. Guideline D1 further states that municipalities are encouraged to carry out feasibility studies at the cost of the proponent and require mitigation measures, including design details and specifications to be implemented by the proponent. Furthermore, Guideline D6 supports the need and purpose of a feasibility study in relation to the industrial uses near sensitive land. Guideline D6 defines an amenity area as an outdoor space used for the enjoyment of persons and establishes residential land as sensitive land uses. Guideline D6 also defines a Class 2 industrial facilities, which the subject property would qualify as given the frequent move of products and or heavy trucks during daytime hours. Guideline D6 establishes the need for a feasibility study given that impacts from industrial source relate to operating and maintenance procedure rather than general land use. Moreover, Guideline D6 confirms the official plan and associated policies have no power of enforcement, making it difficult to calculate actual influence areas at the time the OP is contemplated. Simply put, Guideline D6 concludes that no sensitive land uses shall be permitted within the actual or potential influence area or Class 1, 2, or 3 industrial land uses without evidence that's to substantiate the absence of a problem. Guideline D6 sets the potential or actual influence areas from Class 2 industrial facilities to be 300 meters apart. My lawyer can confirm that there are residential properties within 300 meters. Mine being that I'm right across the road. I was actually tempted to do the Zoom call right from the front yard so you can see how close we are to that. and there is no such thing as a sound barrier here. I can assure you of that. We confirm that guideline D6, I have not received any report to that effect, and that's my first point. Next slide. That's just a picture of my backyard. We can go to the next slide. That's definitely not urban. Number 2, inconsistency with the official plan. And I've got the one that was voted on last fall. This is the 2018 Municipal Comprehensive Review of Urban Serviced Area. Let me read this. We acknowledge and agree that 2002 OP designates the subject property as industrial. However, the 2002 OP at section 4.5.2 states that in the settlement area known as Canafton residential development of a nature that preserves the character of the hamlet shall be encouraged. The present characteristics along Blessington Road are low density residential and agricultural uses, not industrial uses. Therefore, low density residential and agricultural uses shall be encouraged over industrial uses. I know the comment was made previously that there's another property right across the corner that's got the same designation. I can assure you, after being out here for almost 40 years, there's not 112 parking spots there. There's probably 5 or 6 trucks. More particularly, 2002 OP establishes that the master drainage plans should be prepared for each drainage basin within the Canafton planning area, and that as the guiding principle, master drainage plans should be prepared on the basis of a 0% increase in peak runoff. To our knowledge, a master drainage plan has not been prepared, and the SWM report that was prepared does not evidence a 0 increase in peak runoff as a result of the proposed development. 2019 Watson report. Most importantly, the application of RFA report fails to address the report titled City of Belleville 2018 Municipal Comprehensive Review of Urban Serviced Area as prepared by Watson and Associates on August the 12th, 2019, the Watson report. The Watson report was prepared in relation to the city's official plan update as required of the Planning Act and adopted by the City of Belleville in the fall of 2019. I don't know the date that it was voted on, but it was voted on. A key focus of the Watson report was to examine the exchange of lands currently within the urban serviced area, majority of lands located on the Canafton East industrial area, for lands outside of the urban serviced area that have been recently expropriated by the City of Belleville, adjacent to the Northeast Industrial Park, for the purpose of future industrial development was undertaken. The goal of the city's land exchange was to protect the city's supply of agricultural lands and avoid exacerbating the city's existing surplus of employment lands. Such focus and purpose was confirmed in the staff report memo number PP 2019-32 dated May 6, 2019. As a result of such focus and purpose, the city concluded in staff report PP 2019-32 that it must remove 276 gross hectares of employment land located north of Highway 401 and east of 37 from the city's urban boundary, which is currently underserviced and not considered serviceable within the forecast period. The subject property is included within the 276 hectares mentioned above. Unfortunately, the city has not completed its update, which was referred in the first session tonight we talked about, replacing the 2002 OP. When it does, in accordance with the Watson report, the new official plan will remove the said property from the city's employment lands and change its industrial use designation. In light of the foregoing, we submit that the subject property and proposed application does not, in fact, confirm with the city's official plan. In other words, once the city updates the official plan, the proposed rezoning will not confirm with the land use designation under the updated official plan. Thank you. We'll go to the next slide. And I just reviewed that. So we'll go to the next slide after that. Environmental memo. I want to read this. Stormwater, we covered that. Okay. Environmental report. The RFA report states the environmental report includes a review of the environmental constraints of a review of species at risk. However, the environmental report states that a field study was conducted April 22nd, 2020, but it does not include any species-specific SAR surveys. As the environmental report identifies the potential presence of 17 species at risk, the study should also require specific SAR surveys. The environmental report did identify the likelihood of bats or other migratory breeding birds being present. Particularly the presence of a couple of birds that were there were identified but dismissed. The proposed solution to have vegetation clearing occur between April and October does not adequately address the loss of habitat resulting from the proposed development. In short, the environmental report does not adequately address the concerns to the species at risk, which should be thoroughly considered by Quinte Conservation and the city in review of the application. If we go to the next slide, please. April 22nd, the report was done. Now I've got a habit of doing some video of the day, and I go out for walks every day, and I made a video going by the said property. And it just, I want it noted, when I got the report from the environmental report, I went through and I just wanted to know what was happening that day. And I had 4 layers of clothes on that day. You could see my breath in front of this. And if you go to the next slide, it was actually on Earth Day. This was happening. There's a, they were resurfacing the entire road. It was loud, it was busy. If there was any habitat around there, it's not gonna show up there. I got the report. I sent it to a friend who actually worked for the, when I read through it, it's 20 pages, and I read through it and I'm like, it reads like a canned letter. It reads like something that was just put together. It was already done and then just inserted a few things. I sent it to my friend for his observation who had worked for this company. He said it's pretty much a boilerplate. In all honesty, it's pretty accurate, but it's a boilerplate document. And I look at it and said, how on earth are they going to get actual, they're going to see what's happening in that area when it's freezing cold. Like you could actually see your breath that day, and there was all that construction already going on. If you go to the next slide. This picture was taken a week, actually 2 weeks ago tonight, right in that area. My wife and I were going to a local hardware store. We just walked by and there was a deer in there. We go to the next slide. There's a creek, there's a pond behind our house. There's a creek on that property. This was a picture of a turtle, and we know there's been turtles crossing the road there. There was no mention in the report of any turtles. So to me, it would look like they made a form letter. They just said, okay, this is what we're doing. And they ran it through. There was no mention of turtles there. And again, when I went by in the morning, I was by at 8 o'clock in the morning on the 22nd. There was no vehicles there. I went by again at noon. There was no vehicles there. Okay, we'll go to the next slide, please. There's a picture of the creek that was taken last Friday. And that empties, that's at the back of the property, enters into the Moira River. Next slide, please. My question is, we're building next to a water source which feeds into the Moira. I got some environmental issues that are getting me a little hopped up. We're proposing an 11 building commercial operation with not 300 parking spots, but 112 parking spots. With all that traffic in there, at some point with all the fleet, I'm sure they're gonna have to do their own maintenance. If they do their own repair or whatnot on site, being that close to a water source, changing that much oil, diesel, fuel close to a water source that feeds into the Moira, I've got some serious concerns about that. Next slide, please. There's a wetland pond area in the back, which I noticed wasn't on one of the slides or the reports that I received. And then there's a picture from some vegetation within the creek, some circled areas. Again, I don't believe it was on the report. Next slide. Traffic study. I'm going to read this. Neither the traffic report nor the application provides any comments from the Ministry of Transportation, despite the subject property being within the jurisdiction of the MTO. The traffic report notes that the subject property and development is expected to generate up to 485 daily trips, with 44 trips during the peak hours of between 4 and 6. The traffic report does not give notes that the given proposed development would not have more than 60 vehicles per hour turning into the property per hour. A right lane turning lane is not required. However, the traffic report does not provide any information or evidence at all on the traffic expected from the storage units. That was totally omitted from the traffic report. no comment, no nothing on there. There's going to be tons of traffic in there. The traffic report also states the left turning lane is required by the MTO for the 100-kilometer speed design, where 40% of the advancing volumes will turn left. The traffic report does not include any traffic volume studies to establish the advancing volume, which is required to determine if a left lane turning lane is required. In short, the traffic report provided does not include the requisite information in our findings. I find it very, very, very difficult to believe with only 10 trucks that they're going to need all this big 112 parking spots, and they're only going to have between 1 and 3. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. And I will finish up. I've got a couple other pages here and then I'm done. If we go to the next slide. Casey and Harmony Road went to 60 kilometers. Higher volume now is on Blessington Road. 2002 plan didn't account for all the traffic changes. Blessington Road also became the EDR for the 401. And I can tell you, my dog can tell you, and all the neighbors can tell you, when the 401 is closed, it's either bumper to bumper traffic on here, or it is going super, super fast, and you want to keep your kids out of here. No adequate studies have been done for the higher and higher volume. And I want to know why the MTO didn't allow the entrance on 37. If they didn't allow it on 37, why on earth are they allowing it on Blessington Road? I just had a funny story years ago. My parents' road was lowered from 80 kilometers down to 60. My father was hopping mad. He went to the township. He was upset about it, and he came to find out my mother was the actual one who started the petition to lower the speed kilometers. So I don't think my wife, though, has started this study. We'll go to the next slide. I just wanted to read a few reports. File B718 and B818 application for severance of this property was made by the previous owner to get 2 buildings lots off of it. The neighborhood was told that it was to sell to a family member of the previous owner. The 2 building lots were severed. One sold just recently, and we believe it to a military member. The for sale sign actually just came down on Friday morning. The 2 building lots were severed. One sold to the military member, and we are told that the other current applicant bought the other lot, as well as inquired or was offered 17 additional acres from the previous owner. It's a different picture than we were presented in 2018. We thought a family member was moving in. Now it's a completely different picture. Of course, no one complained back in 2018. We're local, we're rural. We're not going to do that. What is said is not always the case. Interesting on that note, and I've got it here on that January 11th, 2018 file B718, B818. The application says in that application review, I want to read this portion. Official plan, current designated use, Canifton planning area, subject to rural policy of the plan until such time as the lands are needed for industrial use, farm, single, detached dwelling. At the time such industrial use is needed, I would propose it's not needed now. This was written in 2018. Acting agent for the proponent wrote this memo when he was an employee for the city. Can the city demonstrate that this land is needed for industrial use when it seems to be in excessive lands elsewhere in the city, which wouldn't pose the same issues in development areas? I've also got a memo, which is a bylaw, which is ready to be signed by the mayor and the city clerk. I've got a copy of that, which says basically about this existing bylaw number 3014. This bylaw, it's all ready to go, and it says it's like it's already passed. And this law shall come into effect and take day in the passing. It's got the dates in July. It's got 3 dates X'd out. It just seems like it's going fast here. The speed of which things are preparing is super fast. Today I printed off the bylaw 3014. It's 289 pages. My printer ran out of paper. I've started reviewing some of it, but as I said, I've been on this for 2 weeks. In 2006, I purchased the property at 209 and 211 Dundas Street from Templeman's, the lawyers. In early 2007, I contacted the same people that are on this file, RFA and Ainley. I went through and I had to contact them both, do the site plan, build my existing office. February 2007, we did the reports. spent most of 2007 and 2008 compiling the reports, getting the stormwater management. I actually couldn't build my property and start building it until April 2009, and I moved in December 4th, 2009. It was 2 years, and it was a simple easement. The application was to tear down a small vacant home. This project, I would argue, is much more complex, changing from prime ag, which is not easy, to industrial. Started mid-April, application was filed June 3rd. With that memo already ready to be signed by the mayor, it's just going along quick. Everything's going super quick. 31 years ago, I started as an 18-year-old optimistic insurance broker. After 31 years in the business, I don't always believe what I'm told. I was become a lot more cynical, my wife would probably tell you, and my radar starts going off a lot. When a grandmother comes in and tells me she's bought a brand new pickup truck, which is fully loaded with lifts on the tires and gun racks and her grandson's name on the vanity plates, and says she's the only driver, I question big time and my radar goes off. I tell you right now, my radar is going off with this application. There's something not right here and I intend to get to the bottom of it. Why is everything so rushed? 10 vehicles for all of this. This is just, I don't understand it. Why is it going so fast? I've talked to an elderly property neighbor who's concerned at the risk of getting COVID. He went into the city masked up on Thursday and got some documents. Why is there such a rush to get it passed? I would have thought that with COVID, things would have actually slowed down. My thought is that once that official plan comes in, the amendment to it, this is taken out of the industrial use, and we might not have this conversation next year. I need to ask these questions. I posted on Facebook on June 24th my concerns. It was shared 97 times. My video was posted on Friday. It has over 1,200 views. Mind you, my mother-in-law's probably watched it about 100 times. I started an online petition on Friday wanting 100 names. It's approaching 400 this afternoon. This is a big issue for our neighborhood and community. Please, members, do not take this lightly. This seems to be fast-tracked at a pace I don't understand. I want to leave you with a couple things. If you go down to the next slide. I didn't even talk about fire suppression. There's no municipal water out here. What is going to be done for fire suppression? That wasn't in the plan. Tank reservoirs, you're going to have to put tons of water in there. Is it good planning to make sure it's going to be maintained over time? What happens if the current owner decides to flip the land and change it? How is it going to impact us with our water in the future? And putting oil and fuel so close to the Moira, I don't agree with that. Next slide, please. We'll go to the next slide. We'll just keep going in interest of time. Posting on the property, if you see it, that's a view up near my road. The sign was posted in the ditch on 37, not even at the entrance. And if you go to the next slide, I took a picture of it. I had to go down on 37 on my way to work. That's a picture of the sign. I know it looks like optics. I'm just telling you, something stinks here and it's got me upset. We'll go to the next slide. Does converting prime ag land to industrial land make sense, and is it needed? Does adding more traffic and upsetting people on Ward 2? Not just Blessington Road. I've had calls today from Casey Road. I've had calls today from Harmony Road and Ritz Side Road. Does planning for current use protect the possible future use and expansion? And my argument, I'll go with the last slide. There's a copy. We've already seen that, so we can keep going. In conclusion, my main 4 arguments: compatibility with the D6. We haven't had anything given to us there. Inconsistency with the official OP from 2002 and the 2018. There's been no correlation there. The environmental study, in my opinion, was a form letter where they put something in. Traffic study isn't done, doesn't even consider what's going to happen with all of the 8-use storage facility. And the sound barrier, I laughed out loud when I said that. I really want you to get in your cars and come out and see the trees here with vehicles, and I can assure you with trucks backing up, if you heard that, there is absolutely zero sound barrier out here, and I encourage you to do that. So next slide. And I wanted to ask the city clerk if he could on record put down how many, I don't know how many people wrote in. A lot of people told me they wrote in, but if you could let us know, that would be great. And I have a petition signed by, at this point, I think 376 names. I was concerned on it when I wrote it out. When I printed it out, it said my wife lived in Kitchener, Ontario on it. So I think it's a little flawed of where it says people are from, but I have a list that I will be submitting. This picture was taken on May the 8th, and you can see Highway 37, you can see Blessington Road. This was the Snowbirds. And the said parcel of land is right there. My house is right beside it. And I will tell you, this is not industrial, this is rural. And I thank you for your time. I know you've had a long day and I appreciate it. And I'll answer any questions if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mackey, for your presentation. Is there any question from committee members? No, I'm not seeing any. I'm just going to say, Mr. Mackey, that I do share your concern with regards to the placement of the sign on the property. I have had conversation with the director just before this meeting. I drove out there today to look at it, and the visibility was poor. The applicants for any application are responsible for placing the sign. We're looking at changing how that's done to make sure that there's adequate notification. It certainly is not the city's position to hide what applications come forward. And again, this is a two-step process. You and I've had a conversation earlier in the week. And so this is a two-part process. So everything that you've indicated here today will be thoroughly analyzed. I don't have a total on our correspondence, but I know myself and Councillor Sanderson have been copied on numerous emails over the last week and a half. And we've assured that if they didn't include the city clerk, that we would forward those along so that they would become public record. And I know just seeing the email exchanges between Councillor Sanderson and myself on some copying of emails that those are all being proceeded and forwarded for official record. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you. So next I have Andrew Latursky. We'll get him to join the meeting. Okay, so Andrew Latursky, we have you in the meeting. I don't know if you're joining by video or just audio alone, but IT tells me there we go. You have your audio turned off. So you just hit your audio button. Okay, for some reason we're not picking up your microphone. We have you unmuted here, and it's not showing that your microphone is muted. No, we're still not having any luck with your audio. Oh,
Good.
There we go.
All right, we're all set. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So my name's Andrew Latursky, and I'm a resident of 98 Blessington Road. I did send a quick email to Mark during Bruce's presentation of a picture. I'm not sure whether or not that's able to be brought up or if you received that.
He's working on that.
Okay. While he's working on that, I can just let you know that in some of the earlier presentations, you can actually see my property. It's in the northeast corner of the proposed overhead view of where the new bays and terminals will be or planning to be built. The tree line that exists there that was noted as the sound barrier is one that I can see my shop through when I turn onto Blessington Road. This time of year, difficult to see, but in early spring and fall throughout the winter, there's definitely not enough trees built up in that area to provide any kind of sound barrier or even visual obstruction from the proposed plan. My concerns with the area is that it was purchased in 2014. My wife and I have started a family in this location, and we have large concerns with the noise pollution that a facility this size would create in our area, concerns with what it could do to our drinking water as we're on a well system there, and just overall quality of life. We like to spend time outside. It is a large lot that gives us the ability to do so, but we do find ourselves going inside anytime the 401 is closed down because of the additional traffic that is redirected down Blessington Road. So with the addition of a large trucking facility, we would imagine our exterior time spent outside would probably be completely diminished, just with the desire not to listen to everything going on. So we're definitely not against the development of something like this in an appropriate area. We do know that there are other trucking companies that are operating within residential areas of Belleville. That being said, the people that own those homes purchase those homes with those trucking companies in place. We purchased ours with a large farm field that we could enjoy, the animals that come with it and everything else like that when we travel back and forth. So I just had a couple other points I wanted to say. At the end of the day, the wildlife there as well, something we enjoy, listening to the birds, seeing chipmunk, squirrels, deer, like Bruce showed in his pictures. And we just have a lot of concerns on really seeing the reports at the end of the day and what this proposed property or business would do to the area.
Okay. Is there any? Yeah, thank you. Is there any questions from committee members? No, I don't see any. Thank you very much for your remarks. So next I have Danny McNair listed to speak in opposition of the application, and we'll get that underway. I have a Danny McNair. Okay, I'm told we don't have anybody in the waiting room for under that name. Also, we have Al Watterson listed. Okay. Okay, so we have Al Watterson in the meeting. Right now, your microphone is muted. I'm not sure if you're joining us by audio or video as well, but if you unmute your microphone, and you will have the floor.
Do we have an audio now?
Yes, we do.
Awesome, awesome. It seems that a lot of people have put a lot of work into this, especially Mr. McKay there. Sounds like he's spending a fair bit of money with lawyers, et cetera, as well. I'm kind of disappointed with comments that Mr. Spencer made there. It seems that the documentation which I have just received in the last few days is not consistent at all with the documentation. Is comparing the Purolator, UPS, etc. They're not the same size operation at all. I'm led to believe that this is a fairly large transport truck terminal, which first thing that came to my mind, I'm directly downwind. My house is directly downwind from the proposed development. I know without question that I'm going to have a serious problem with air pollution with the diesel transport trucks. there's going to be an extensive amount of noise pollution with the transport trucks doing their negotiating around that operation. Another thing that just came to mind is the annoying backup beepers that you can hear from a half a mile away or more. It just is not compatible to that location, not taking consideration into the residents in that area. As Bruce said, there seems to be too much of a rush with this application. I think there's a lot more information that's going to have to be supplied to the people involved, and notification to people in the area that aren't aware of this project. There's not an awful lot more I can say that hasn't already been said. Another thing that came to mind listening to Mr. Spencer when he referred to the official plan. I can say that I'm fairly familiar with the official plan. I don't have it at my hands right now that I can refer to it, but I do know that there are provisions in that official plan that are not consistent to what Mr. Spencer would like us to believe. I'm going to assume, which maybe I shouldn't, that the planning committee make more meetings available to discuss this thing further. And I don't have a hell of a lot more to say than that right this moment, because I do expect that the committee will be looking for further information on it before they make a decision. I think I'm going to leave it at that for the time being, and try to be more aware of the project. With our COVID-19 situation, it does make it difficult for everybody, both the city and doing their job, but also with the residents that are counting on the city to do the right thing. That's about the size of it right now, and hopefully there'll be more opportunity to talk about this in the future.
Okay, well, thank you for those comments.
Before any decisions are made.
Yeah. Is there any questions from committee members? No, seeing none. So, Mr. Watterson, just before you depart from this portion of the meeting, this is a two-step process, so there will be a motion on the floor very shortly in the next portion of the planning committee meeting, and what that will do is just refer this matter to staff, and any comment and concern that's been raised either tonight through the meeting or through correspondence being submitted will be analyzed, and a report will come back to the planning advisory committee at another meeting, in which case then we will debate the application and then provide a recommendation either for or against to the city council to make a decision. So that's kind of the two-step process. So there's a lot of analysis that goes on behind the scenes, and this is something that's we've just implemented this current term.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, and I'm sure the other people's involved appreciate as well.
Okay, thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you.
So with that, I don't have any more people listed, and so I need a motion to refer this to the Planning Advisory Committee. Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Williams. All in favor? Motion's carried. So I'll get a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting. Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Kelly. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. So we move on to the Planning Advisory Committee, and attendance wise, okay. So I'm being told by staff that we have an Amy Porter. And so we're going to allow her to have that opportunity to address the committee.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So
Okay.
You have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Amy Porter and I am a resident of 205 Blessington Road. I want to first thank the members of this planning committee for giving me the chance to speak tonight. Thank you for letting me slip back in there because I was kind of freaked out when you said it was time to go on. So
no problem.
This is my first time venturing into a municipal public discourse, so bear with me. I am going to read to you what I've prepared, just so that I don't forget anything. I oppose the proposed rezoning of 20 Blessington Road from prime agricultural to general industrial. My family has resided at 205 Blessington Road since 1974. I was born 2 years later and have spent most of my life as a resident of this community. As an adult, I chose to return to my home area after seeking my education elsewhere in the province of Ontario and the United States, and beginning my career in Saskatchewan. I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that the Blessington Road neighborhood and the adjacent side roads is a community filled with educated, gainfully employed individuals who make a substantial contribution to the life of the greater Belleville community. To discover that the City of Belleville, in their 2002 official plan, deemed that many portions of our historical rural residential agricultural neighborhood was to become industrial was indeed a surprise, since I do not recollect my family or any of my neighbors being notified directly of this change. My utmost concern about this development is its impact on the local water table and ultimately our drinking water supply. Every residence in this area has a well. In the case of our household is the original dug well that was sourced when my home was built in the 1860s. We have never run dry, but I know that other neighbors who have difficulty in the dry summer months finding enough water to carry out normal household tasks. This proposed development at 20 Blessington Road will be required to have a well, as well as appropriate septic facilities. It will also be required to have 4 separate water reservoirs with a capacity of 71,000 gallons in order to maintain a reasonable firefighting ability if only one of their buildings catch fire. Much of Thurlow Ward 2 is not serviced with municipal water and sewer, and we rely on an excellent volunteer fire department in the case of a fire emergency. Where does the 71,000 gallons of water come from? I'm guessing it will be drawn from the underground aquifer that services dozens of residences in this area. Whose responsibility will it be if one of those wells goes dry as a result of providing fire suppression for a business that could have easily been located in one of Belleville's many industrial and serviced lots? Blessington Road became the official EDR, or emergency detour route, for Highway 401 in 2015. This designation came well after the official 2002 city plan was drafted and approved. The traffic volumes have increased 100-fold when the Highway 401 is closed due to an accident. In the proposal's traffic report, it does state that this property will expect up to 485 daily trips to be coming and going from the intersection of Highway 37 and Blessington Road. 485 daily trips equate to 485 more trucks, adding a significant level of congestion at a crucial junction that is required to have smooth traffic flow in the event of a closure of Highway 401. The traffic congestion in this location after a hill and a significant bend in the road will also make it difficult to stop, especially during inclement weather, given the speeds that people take on our road. The addition of the EDR designation to Blessington Road significantly changes the intended use of this road and thus renders the 2002 observations of traffic flow irrelevant. With 485 more trucks accessing Blessington Road daily, we will have a significant increase in noise pollution in the neighborhood. I live approximately 700 meters from the edge of this proposed development. The home I live in is approximately 160 years old. When this home was designed and built, air conditioning as we know it in the year 2020 had not been invented. On hot summer nights, our only air conditioning is opening the windows to catch the breeze. Try getting a decent night's sleep when you have significant truck traffic occurring less than a kilometer away, and you cannot close the windows because to do so would mean inside temperatures soaring over 25 degrees Celsius. Another concern is that of light pollution. In the proposal, it states that all lights will be directed away from property lines. This will still have a significant impact on the residences and individuals located within a close proximity of the development. Light pollution is known to affect human health as well as the health of nearby ecosystems, specifically the wetland located to the southeast of the property in question. The proposal states that all stormwater runoff will be directed into the existing watercourse at the southern property limits. This existing watercourse empties directly into the Moira River and will carry with it any or all contaminants that it picks up from the development site. The resulting toxic or thermal flush could significantly damage the ecosystem of the creek and the Moira River. The environmental review states that this area contains vegetation that is common in areas of day roosting for at least 2 endangered bat species, the little brown myotis and the tricolored bat. It recommends that vegetation be removed between October and April so as not to disturb the day roosting bat species. The Government of Ontario website states specifically that in both of these cases that the endangered species and their general habitat are automatically protected. If this is the case, how can it be permitted that possible day roosting sites be removed on this property to allow development during the bats' winter hibernation period? I found it curious to note that in the environmental assessment, there was no mention to the presence of a sunken formation in the circular area of trees that juts into the field from the southern environmentally protected creek area. And at this meeting tonight was the first time I heard a reference to the existence of a hazard land being referenced in this proposed area. This area within the trees appears to be a sinkhole that is circular in nature and approximately 40 meters wide and more than 1 meter deep. If you look at a satellite view of the property, you can actually discern a circular line within the treed area. There is also a wetland of similar size, about 20 meters to the southeast. This property is located within 12 kilometers to the Tyananaga caverns and caves, which were discovered after digging out sinkholes found on their property. This whole area is classified as karst land, and so land formations of this type are possible where the bedrock is limestone. The Putnam Quarry is located directly south of this property, and quarrying on karst land can exacerbate sinkhole formations. If this is indeed a sinkhole, the location of the depression lays right where the 4th phase of this proposed development is intended to be built. The municipality has an obligation to ensure that a proper investigation is made into this sensitive land feature within the hazard lands before any of this area is disturbed. Without an investigation, this sinkhole poses a safety concern to the development and a route for possible water table contamination if improperly disturbed. Part 5, pardon me, I just need a drink of water here. Part 5 of the justification report in the proposal for rezoning refers to the conformity to the policies of the official plan. In this paragraph, the report states that the rezoning proposal is in alignment with the City of Belleville's official plan that was adopted by Council in June 2001 and approved by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing in January 2002. Nowhere in this paragraph does the justification report state that the City of Belleville official plan is under review. I would expect that the planner in question to acknowledge of this process as he previously worked for the City of Belleville. The City of Belleville 2018 Municipal Comprehensive Review of Urban Serviced Area report recommends removing this very piece of land from its employment land inventory, as it is unlikely to be serviced in the future 2 decades. It further recommends it to be designated or de-designated prime agricultural in the new official plan, a use much more in keeping with our neighborhood. And I could read the specific section, but I'm sure you can find it yourself. It's found on page 8 of the City of Belleville 2018 Municipal Comprehensive Review. So if it would benefit the City of Belleville not to develop the site at 20 Blessington Road and instead focus their development in an area where it is more economically feasible to provide city services, such as sewer and water, should this application not be refused. Documented in this review, the City of Belleville has 166 gross hectares of land available east of the current Northeast Industrial Area. Why destroy good, valuable agricultural land when other more favorable lands are available? Just south of this proposed development is the location of the TransCanada Pipeline. According to the website, tcenergy.com, this is the Canadian mainline natural gas pipeline. In their online publication, Work Safely, Guidelines for Development Near Our Pipelines and Facilities, it states to contact TransCanada before developing within 750 meters of a TransCanada compressor station and or pump station so that they can analyze the potential impacts and recommend measures to protect adjacent lands from industrial impacts. The western boundary of this proposed development is approximately 600 meters from the compressor station located in Canterton, Ontario. Nowhere in the proposal does it make any mention of contacting TransCanada Energy for any analysis for this development. Finally, it is a sad but realistic expectation that any development of the kind proposed at 20 Blessington Road will have a detrimental impact on the property values of the existing residents in the area. If council approves this rezoning application, the impact on the pocketbooks of the voting constituents in this community will be real. Many residents are older and their homes contain much of their retirement equity. Other newer residents bought into the area with the expectation that property values would increase, or at least not get stuck paying a mortgage on a property that is valued less than it was when they bought it. They also expected to be living in a rural community, not the edge of an industrial zone. I have heard from many of my neighbors that they are very concerned about this development. Many have lived in Thurlow for decades and have deep family ties in this rural community, and we still see ourselves as Thurlow and not an extension of the city. I know I speak for many when I say we do not wish to see new urban development that will dramatically change our community permitted. We support the recommendations to remove this land from the potential industrial uses and see it return to agriculture. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any questions from committee members? No, I don't see any. So I know you provided written comments, and your comments here tonight will form part of the record. So thank you.
Thank you.
So before I move any further, anybody else requesting? No? Okay, thank you. All right, so we're moving on to Plan Advisory Committee meeting and attendance. I see everyone present. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Mr. Jennings.
Yes, I'd like to declare pecuniary interest in item 7.4. As an employee of Loyalist College, I will not participate.
Thank you for that, and I know that you've noted that previously. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. So any confirmation of the minutes of the City Council Planning Committee meeting and Planning Advisory Committee meeting held on June 1st, 2020. Moved by Mr. Joyce, seconded by Mr. Baltutis. All in favor? Motion's carried. No deputations. Correspondence, I have 6 items of correspondence in relation to file number B-77-1106, which is the proposed brewery on Mitchell Road. Can I get a motion to receive that? Mr. Baltutis, Councillor Sanderson, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. And we have one piece of correspondence in relation to application B-77-1104. which is the proposed gas bar and eating establishment on Highway 62. So can I get a motion to receive that? Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Mr. Joyce. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you. So moving on to referrals from the public meeting. 6.1, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed official plan amendment and amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 135 Canopton Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file numbers B-77-1111 and B-50-3-32. Owner is DACA Investment Properties Limited. Applicant is Hillary Murphy, Task Force Engineering Incorporated. Agent is Spencer Hutchison, RFA Planning Consultant Incorporated. Policy Planners Report Number PP-2020-28 refers. Resolution reads that Report Number PP-2020-28 dated July 6, 2020 regarding the notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 135 Canopton Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Departments. Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Ms. Brown. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. 6.2, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, blocks 80 and 81, registered plan 21M-271, and parts 1 through 4 of plan 21R-25-429, being a part of lot 2, concession 3, former township of Thurlow, City of Belleville, County of Hastings. File number is B-77-1112. Owner is 2215000 Ontario Incorporated and 2380416 Ontario Incorporated. Applicant is RFA Planning Consultant Incorporated. Principal Planners Report Number PP-2020-29 refers. The resolution reads that Report Number PP-2020-29 dated July 6, 2020 regarding the notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, blocks 80 and 81, register plan 21M-271, and parts 1 through 4 of plan 21R-25-429 being part of lot 2, concession 3, former township of Thurlow, City of Belleville, County of Hastings be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. The motion, Councillor Williams, seconded by Mr. Joyce. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? That motion is carried. 6.3, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 20 Blessington Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings. File number is B-77-1113. Owner is Shadi Ueni, 2706684 Ontario Incorporated. Applicant is Spencer Hutchison, RFA Planning Consultant Incorporated. Policy Planners Report Number PP-2020-30 refers. The resolution reads that Report Number PP-2020-30 dated July 6, 2020 regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 20 Blessington Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Moved by Ms. Brown, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any questions or comments? Mr. Jennings.
Thank you, through the chair. I guess this would be a question maybe for Mr. Deming, but a couple of the people had commented, and I noticed myself, about the municipal comprehensive review and the idea of the land exchange for this property. Could you comment on how that does or doesn't affect the development from the city's perspective?
Councillor.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'll just provide some comment. I know I'm fading away into the dark here. So the municipal comprehensive review did reference the removal of the recommended removal of the subject land of 20 Blessington Road as part of the lands that they had recommended for removal. That being said, after further consultation and discussion, there was from a staff perspective, I understand this was prior to me joining the city, that those lands would not be removed from the urban boundary and that they would remain designated. The new draft official plan takes the word industrial designation and just changes it to employment. So they would be designated employment in the new draft official plan that has yet to be released, however.
Thank you for that.
Oh, and I should note that the application would be considered under the current official plan, the current approved official plan. So that is what the policy that we assess the application against.
And maybe as a follow-up, is the planning consultant correct in that the official plan is more relevant than the zoning, the long-range zoning plan in this case, as he alluded?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the official plan document provides the broader vision for the development of the community. So oftentimes it does designate lands which with an intended future land use, for instance. So in that way, perhaps it provides a more long-term vision for the city rather than the zoning bylaw, which regulates the immediate use of the land. I would say that the OP is there to define that vision, to define where intended land uses are meant to be. So yes, I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I just have one. There was reference tonight in one of the presentations that the bylaw was drafted. And if I could just get a quick explanation on that, please.
To you, Mr. Chair. So there was a little confusion from that. So as a requirement of a complete application, staff required the applicant to submit a draft zoning bylaw amendment because that way, if it comes from the applicant, it's prepared by them and there's no confusion as to what they're asking for. It is by no means something that was prepared by staff or issued for consideration at this time. It's simply part of the application so that we can be 100% aware of what they are asking for in terms of the actual implementing bylaw, if it were to be considered and decided as approved. However, it's simply just a supporting document submitted by the applicant. And it's by no means meant to be presented for consideration at this time. It's simply there for information.
Okay, thank you for that. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion carries. So moving on to reports, 7.1, recommendation report for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 8092 Highway 62, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file numbers B-77-1104. Owner applicant is Garinda Saran. Agent is Nitin Malhotra. Principal planners report number PP-2020-31 refers. The resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended be amended by rezoning the subject land described as 8092 Highway 62 from C3-4 General Commercial Zone to C3-17 with H Commercial Zone Holding Zone with special provisions to add eating establishment as a permitted use to facilitate the development of the land for a gas park with an associated convenience store and an eating establishment. Need somebody to move that. Councillor Culhane, seconded by Mr. Baltutis. Any questions or comments? Mr. Beltutis.
If I recall correctly, was there not to be an MTO report on this application?
I'll look to staff for an answer on that one.
Yes, through the chair, the MTO will provide comments and the site plan itself will be subject to MTO review. Part of their actual, their initial comments was requesting a stormwater management report, which is why we're requesting a holding provision put on it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments on this one? I do have one question with respect to water. I did get an email from a resident in the area who was concerned about the water table. And then there was some anecdotal information that suggested it was somewhat problematic out there. I see in the report that it refers to potable water, a portable water tank, or some type of water tank. Could we make it a provision that they would have to use that as the source for potable water versus drilling a well?
Mr. Chair, we could definitely do that. The initial thinking behind it was well was their first option. And before they could actually open the eating establishment for use, it would have to be approved by the health department, Hastings Prince Edward Public Health Department. So any water would have to be potable ahead of time. So they've made the provisions and have stated to us that if the well does not test as potable, that they would then bring in a holding tank to then bring in water that would meet the provincial requirements. But it could be amended to include that they have a holding tank.
So maybe I'll rephrase my question, because it wasn't necessarily concerned about the water quality. It was the concern about taking more water from the aquifer in the area where there's already existing wells and drawing and making that an area of concern. So that was my bigger concern. I understand that they would have to meet all the health provisions, etc. It was a concern about that operation drawing greater amounts of underground water, which would impact existing wells. And is there a way we can mitigate that?
You can. I was just going to say, Mr. Chair, that Quinte Conservation initially provided correspondence that they did not have any concerns with the water in that area. But after further consultation, they did suggest a hydrogeological study, which is why we're requesting the holding provision on there. And that study itself should provide that information. Jessica, do you have anything to add?
No, no, Tom, that's exactly it. So the hydrogeological study is determined to be a recommended study by the Conservation Authority upon further consultation with them. So the holding symbol would be dependent on them successfully completing and submitting a hydrogeological study to the City of Belleville to our satisfaction prior to that removal. And the removal of the holding symbol does come back to council for approval.
Okay, so thank you for that, because I think it's very important that, particularly with a larger operation, there's no adverse impact to existing well users in that area. The other thing I was going to mention, because I did see comments online, that why would the City of Belleville want such a development to occur at that location and an eating establishment? And I think just for public knowledge that the city doesn't initiate these applications. These are driven by landowners and developers that are looking to add economic contribution to our city. And so it's their proposal to bring forward such applications. This one, in fact, the land is zoned for a plethora of uses. The only reason why it is actually before the planning committee is to add the eating establishment. So the gas bar is an existing use that could have been proceeded through the staff level without a planning application. So I just wanted to provide that clarification to members of the public that the City of Belleville doesn't necessarily go out and say, this is where we'd like to put a gas station and an eating establishment, but it is in fact private developers that are coming to us with those investments. Any other questions or comments? If not, I got a motion on the floor. All in favor? That motion carries. So 7.2, recommendation report for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 464 Mitchell Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file numbers B-77-1106. Owner applicant is Sean Milne. Principal planners report number PP-2020-32 refers. The resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended be amended by rezoning a portion of subject land described as 464 Mitchell Road from prime agricultural zone to prime agricultural PA 57 zone with special provisions to permit a brewery and or distillery as an accessory use with a maximum lot coverage of 2% and a maximum water usage of 10,000 liters per day. Moved by Ms. Brown, seconded by Mr. Joyce. Any questions or comments on this motion? Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a conversation with Mr. Deming through you earlier today when I was looking at the complete file about the necessity for hydrological study, and I'm aware that it takes 50,000 gallon necessity to have to do one, but I'm echoing your concern with the water table people are voicing. That's their biggest worry, I think. So I just thought I would touch on that, if you don't mind, Mr. Deming, and maybe you could explain for the public why there's no need for a study, or no mandate for a study might be a better word.
Yes, through Mr. Chair. The further to consultation with Quinte Conservation, based off what they're currently proposing, the hydrogeologist at Quinte Conservation indicated the current proposal would be similar to 2 dwellings, the amount of water that they would use, approximately 250 liters of water per day, which at this time staff is comfortable with approving without a hydrogeological test or study. If the project itself exceeds the 50,000, at that point, it's automatically triggered that one is required. The city can require one sooner. That's why we put the 10,000 limit on there, where once they exceed the 10,000 liters per day, it no longer is approved by the city building department. It goes then to the ministry approval. So that's why where that number comes from. But based off of their current proposal and what the amount of water they're proposing to use, we don't feel that it was necessary, as it will have minimal impact.
Thank you, Mr. Deming, through you, Mr. Chair. So if a problem should develop, which there's great concern that a problem will develop, what action, like someone's well goes dry, I guess is what I'm referring to. So that person has what recourse at that point?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Under the current proposal, as we've discussed with the Quinte Conservation, there is no concern for, based off the initial water usage that they're proposing, with the 10,000 liters per day, at that point, that would trigger a hydrogeological study. So at that point, that would be our chance to ensure that any excess water use is that the property itself is capable of that. Just like any expansion proposed would also trigger site plan at the same time.
Could I just ask you the cost of such a study and the length of time involved? And I guess is estimate the best you can do.
Through Mr. Chair, I don't actually have those cost estimates at hand. I'd have to refer to staff and in their actual engineering division for the comment on that. And I could provide that at a later date for you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Nope, seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. 7.3, recommendation report for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended. Sorry, did I get feedback there? Councilor Culhane, could you?
Sorry? Oh, I thought I did, sorry.
That's okay. I'm hearing my voice like 3 times here. It's hard to hear the first one. So a recommendation report for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 is amended. 144 Avondale Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file numbers B-77-1107. Owner applicant is Matt Griesbeck. Agent is Caitlin Sheehan, Ailey Group. Policy planners report number PP-2020-33 refers. The resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That zoning bylaw number 10245 is amended, be amended by rezoning the 2 severed parcels of the subject land described as 144 Avondale Road from residential first density R1 zone to residential second density R2 zone as a condition for consent applications B11-20 and B12-20. Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Mr. Jennings. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Oh, sorry. Councillor Culhane.
Avondale Road, through you, Mr. Chair, I guess to Mr. Ashton. Avondale Road generated quite a bit of response, did it not?
In terms
The
of
people in the
our,
development?
I think some of the townhomes behind, the street behind, yes.
The people that I talked to, if I may. Sage Street.
Yeah.
People that I talked to from Sage Street, this application, one of their concerns was the potential for development in all of the ensuing lots all the way down the road. And that's addressed in the package, that there has to be frontage before there can be further development. And those statements, that's based on current law, correct? Set out by the ministry?
Sorry, yeah, it's in our official plan. You have
But you can't do anything through those 2 lots to create further development behind them.
Right, it's just the 2 lots in question
That we're speaking of right
being
now.
proposed for development,
So
yes.
one of their primary concerns seemed to be that something might go on behind those 2 lots further down the road, that this might develop into something that is not simply 2 houses.
I believe that the application, sorry, I'm just getting feedback. I believe that the application is just specific to the property. So there's the 2 lots that have been granted conditional severance, and those are the 2 lots that are being considered for rezoning.
I understand that. My concern is for the people who are asking the questions, because some are senior and they're having a hard time following the need for this or why we would allow this. And there's only the 2 on the corner of Sage Street that are impacted. One still looks into a backyard, and the second one will look into the side yard of one of the 2 new houses, correct? So the others down the street, the others who have objected, their entire primary number 1 fear is that more will happen behind. So based on our current official plan and our current provincial mandates, that can't happen. But given that we're pushing for intensification, and that this project represents intensification, the addition of 2 more single building lots, can we say with any certainty that nothing will change in this area?
Okay, so I think one of my first lessons in planning when I went to a planning counter, I think it was in Oakville, was you can never say never. So you never know what will happen in the future. All I know is that this application just deals with the proposed severance of 2 lots, and that's all we're dealing with here. So perhaps there is something in the future. There may or may not be, but I don't think anyone would be able to say never.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I got a motion on the floor. All in favor? Motion carries. 7.4, Mr. Jennings has declared a conflict, so I'll have IT remove him from the meeting, put him in the waiting room for now. Okay, so 7.4 is recommendation report for application for proposed amendment to the Loyalist secondary plan as amended in zoning bylaw number 2076-80 as amended, Wallbridge Loyalist Road, part of lot 31, concession 1, part 1, registered plan 21R-19789, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file numbers B-77-1108 and B-50-3-31. Owner is Quinny Business Development Center Incorporated. Applicant agent is RFA Planning Consultant Incorporated. Principal planners report number PP-2020-34 refers. And the resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. The applications B-77-1108 and B-50-3-31 as amended, the City of Belleville Loyalist secondary plan and zoning bylaw number 2076-80 as amended for Wallbridge Loyalist Road, part lot 31, concession 1, part 1, registered plan 21R-19789, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, approved as follows. That Schedule A land use for the of the Loyalist secondary plan be amended by redesignating the subject land from residential to community facility, and zoning bylaw number 2076-80 as amended be amended by rezoning the subject land from rural residential RR 44 zone to community facility CF zone. Mr. Joyce, seconded by Mr. Baltutis. Any questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? The motion is carried. 7.5 is recommendation report for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 246 Harmony Road, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file numbers B-77-1109. Owner applicant is Marlene McKenzie. Agent is Keith Watson of Watson Land Surveyors Limited. Principal planners report number PP-2020-35 refers. The resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended be amended by rezoning a portion of the subject land described as 247 Harmony Road from prime agricultural PA zone to rural residential RR zone with special provisions to reduce the required lot frontage to 44.5 meters and recognize the existing accessory buildings lot coverage as a condition of consent application B5-20. Someone to move that, please. Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion carries. 7.6 is recommendation report for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 406 Maitland Drive, City of Belleville, County of Hastings. File number is B-77-1110. Owner is Andy Ertzma. Applicant is GCC Developments Limited. Policy planners report number PP-2020-36 refers. The resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended be amended by rezoning the subject land described as 406 Maitland Drive to add veterinary clinic as a permitted use within the general industrial M116 zone. Moved by Ms. Brown, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Any questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. Moving on to information matters, 8.1 official plan and zoning bylaw amendment monitoring report to July 6, 2020. I need a motion to receive that. Mr. Baltutis and Councillor Culhane. Any questions or comments? Mr. Joyce.
Yeah, I noticed from the 7 proposals last time that the hotel one on Millennium was not brought back. Do we have any updates on that, or is it coming next meeting, or is there other significant issues that are being dealt with?
Yeah, I'll get you an update from staff.
Through you, Mr. Chair. There was some concern raised following the last public meeting with regard to the proposed hotel development. specifically in regard to the circulation of the public notice. Canada Post perceived delays. There was a number of residents concerned that they did not receive their notice in time, and also concern raised in regard to the sign referencing, or the notice needing to reference the 5-story hotel portion of the development. So we decided that it would be appropriate and needed to redo the public meeting. So the public meeting is rescheduled to occur in August. So at the regular public meeting schedule in August. So that will be another initial public meeting for this application. This will give the public more time to provide comment should they wish, or speak at the public meeting as well. That being said, I would like to confirm that in our notice distribution for this public meeting and further public meetings, while we're still dealing with the ongoing COVID situation, we have decided to hand deliver all local notices to the required property owners within the 120-meter radius. So if anyone is living locally, we are hand delivering these notices, not just for this application, for all planning applications going to public meeting now. And anyone who is residing outside of the city of Belleville, we will still mail the application as per the Planning Act. So in this case, we're striving to exceed the minimum requirements of the Planning Act in order to ensure that the public is adequately and timely or notified in a timely manner. So that's the reason for the delay in that application. It will return to a public meeting in August.
Thank you. And now we know why there wasn't a lot of public response to particularly the 5 floors and the residents on the back there, and that was raised at the last meeting, so that makes sense. And that's a good practice to hand deliver, particularly in today's postal environment that we're in. So no, well done. Thank you.
Yeah, the COVID pandemic derailed the public meeting that was occur back in March, and then there was some confusion about notification for the rescheduling of the meeting. So yes, I echo your comments about going that extra mile. Any other questions on any of the information matters? Okay, seeing none, I got a motion to receive. All in favor? That motion's carried. General business and inquiries. I don't see anything. So I have some closing remarks. The Planning Advisory Committee's applicable decisions will be forwarded to City Council for consideration, forming part of the agenda for the City Council meeting to be held at a future date. Just want to thank committee members. I know members of council, we had a long budget day today. And then now this has been a marathon session, at least so far this term for this Planning Advisory Committee. Appreciate your patience, particularly as we work out some of the kinks with the virtual component. And with that, I'll get a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Baltutis, seconded by Councillor Williams. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you and have a good evening.